Okay, I apologize, everybody. I'm not a techie, and I had to upgrade my Zoom, which took a few moments. So today we're going to talk a little bit about toughness. A few years ago, Jay Billis, who's a basketball player from Duke, and as you know, a commentator on ESPN, wrote an article for ESPN magazine, and it was called Toughness. He was sick and tired of watching young athletes bump their chests and make all these gyrations after they did something that they perceived was good on the basketball court. So he wanted to explain what real toughness in athletics was. And so I called him and asked permission. As some of you know, I'm the editor of Soccer Journal. I asked permission to reprint his article, and he gave it to me, and I did. And that article turned out to be a book by Jay Billis, B-I-L-A-S. I recommend that book to you, and it's called Toughness. And it's a really, really good kind of entree into what real mental toughness is for our athletes. So let's see if I can figure out how to move this. Okay, so all of you have heard about the 4 pillars of soccer: technical, tactical, the psychosocial, and the physical. I think in our country, we do a pretty good job with the physical. I think we do a pretty good job with the technical. I think our tactical awareness is getting better. It's not there yet, but it's getting better. But I don't think we do a very good job in the psychological end. And this is what mental toughness is all about. And at Ohio Wesleyan, for example, we've been using strategies since I set foot on this campus in August of 1977. And I believe that that is the common denominator for any perceived success that we have had. Next. The definition of mental toughness is being able to withstand great force without tearing or breaking. Something that is tough, is strong, and resilient. Click. So you don't have to answer this, but when you think of toughness, who do you think of in any sport? Basketball, soccer, whatever. Who are really, really tough players? I'm going to leave that up to you. And that is our end game. That's where we want to get with your players. Next. I think toughness is a skill. I think fitness is a skill. Toughness has nothing to do with the physical, has nothing to do with size, physical strength, or athleticism. Toughness is, Nate, it's an intangible, it's an attitude, it's a philosophy. And the philosophy has to be generated by you, the coach, for your team. And you have to work on mental toughness every single day, just like you work on technique and fitness every single day. Nate? Everyone can develop and improve their mental toughness. There's absolutely no question about that. So what I'm hoping will happen today is I'm going to quickly explain to you what Jay Billis thinks as mental toughness. Now, this is a PowerPoint that I give to my team the first day of preseason, which, as most of you know, is next week, because I want to reaffirm in their minds what we're going to do going forward. Next. The 10 characteristics. Go ahead, Nate, knock them down, please. Trust, preparation, courage, communication, persistence, the next play mentality, commitment, acceptance, resilience, and self-evaluation. All of these are really, really important. And I will try to present them and give you some ideas of what you can do to help yourself and your athletes improve their toughness. Next, so we'll talk about trust first. Trust is in part a belief in a common goal. Great teammates believe in themselves and what they are striving to accomplish and what they are capable of doing together as a team. So belief as an individual, your players as individuals and your team, is really, really important. The belief in what you can do if you play your best. Now, that doesn't mean that you walk in front of your team every year and you say, okay, we're going to win the national championship this year, because if you're not capable of doing that, you're not going to have the credibility necessary or the trust of the players going forward. Maybe it's winning the conference championship. Maybe it's being 500, but it's reaching the highest level that your team can reach. Trust is a belief in yourself. Your team has good players. There are good players on the team. You've got to believe in them, and you've got to believe in yourself as a coach. And belief through adversity is trust. How do you react when something's not going your way? And that's soccer, isn't it? We all know thunderbolts. You're ahead 1-0, and all of a sudden there's a turnover at midfield. The other team comes down and scores 1-1, and you are all over this team, out shooting them 10-1, and so on and so forth. That's a thunderbolt. How is your team going to react to that? How are you, as a coach, going to react on that? Are you going to focus on the little things, or are you going to feel sorry for yourself? I believe doing the little things is really, really important for every single team. Our players don't change as people when they walk on the field. So if they don't do the little things off the field, they're not going to do the little things on the field. At Ohio Wesleyan, for example, if I see a player walk past a piece of trash on the floor, on the ground, and he doesn't pick it up, we have a problem. Because what he's saying is, Jay, why don't you pick it up? Or teammate, why don't you pick it up? I don't have to do that. He's not going to run back 40 yards to defend, because he's going to think, hey, teammate, you take care of my defensive responsibility. I'm going to hang out on top. The little things are critical. Next. Preparation. Concentrate on what you're doing while you're doing it. You all know this. We're talking about being in the moment. We're talking about the process, not the outcome. There's a great book, another great book I recommend, by Bill Walsh, former coach of the San Francisco 49ers. It's called The Score Takes Care of Itself. It's not an American football book. It's an American coaching book. I recommend it. One step at a time, preparation, goals, obstacles, and make a personal plan. We are big time into goal setting at Ohio Wesleyan and have done so since 1977. You've got to let your players know that everything they do is important, whether it's on the field, in the classroom, in the dormitories, it's important. And you should urge your players to create a goal for every activity that you do. We want our players to have a goal when they set foot on the practice field, a goal for themselves. The coaching staff have a goal for the team for that day, but the players have to have a goal for themselves. And focus on your goals, the process, not the destination. Nate? Courage. Here's a little video. I hope the quality is okay. Can you run that, Nate?
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot.
And he missed. That's what he's saying.
And missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Thank you, Nate. Next one, please. You have to, still talking about courage for a second, you have to develop a mentality that mistakes are not negative, especially in practice. You want your players to make mistakes in practice, but you don't want them to make mistakes in a game. So the players have to know what they can do and what they can do well, and that's all they should do in a game. And then they experiment in practice. And they're going to make mistakes, you know that. How you react to those mistakes, very, very important for teaching and learning. Communication, toughness is about being accountable, and tough players are willing to hold teammates accountable for the team standards without worrying that the player will take criticism or command the wrong way. You all know that the majority of your players are very thin-skinned. We Americans are others-oriented. That's a psychological term, saying that we just care too much about what other people think. Now I'm 73, and when you guys get to be 73, you will not care what other people think. It took me a while to do that, but I just don't care anymore. Teammates cannot fear hurting feelings. but have to trust that everyone is tough enough to accept that anything said is the best interest of the team's performance and development. Now, I believe that you have to be careful with how your players give advice and how you give advice, but your players as a group have to understand that you're just trying to help them get better. Grant Hill, former Duke All-American and 14-year NBA player, says, are you tough enough to hold teammates accountable to your team standards? Are your players tough enough to hold one of their teammates accountable if the teammate shows up late for the practice or late for the bus or whatever it is? Communication, accountability. Nate? Persistence. The catchphrase today is grit, as you've probably heard. Persistence is simply your ability to keep going without giving up or giving in. If you can be persistent in your belief, preparation, communication, your willingness to endure, and all of the other elements of mental toughness, you will be tougher. Persistence is part of what you cultivate, enhance, develop, create with goal setting. Your players should be persistent toward reaching their goals. Persistence means pushing limits. Allow yourself to exceed a limit you thought you could no longer go past. This is called stepping out of your comfort zone. This goes hand in hand with what I just said about making mistakes. If you can look at some concentric circles, the first circle is your comfort zone, and it's called that because you're comfortable there, because you don't press yourself, you don't push yourself. The second circle is called the learning zone. And in order for you to get better at something, you have to push yourself out of the comfort zone into the learning zone. And by definition, that means you're going to make mistakes, but it also means you're going to get better. So get your players to get out of their comfort zone in training, tell them they're going to make mistakes, tell them they have to learn from those mistakes. And that's part of your job, giving good, positive feedback, and let them learn and get better. Will you be the first one out? I'm asking my players. Will you be the first one out to practice and the last one to leave the practice field? Do you have goals? Have you set goals for training that are going to help you become a better player? Next one, please, Nate. Next play mentality. You all know that. Oops, I'm sorry. Could you go back one? Thank you. The game of soccer is simple, but it's negative. Soccer and golf are two of the most negative games in the world. You can totally outshoot, and I'm preaching to the choir here, you can totally outshoot a team and hit the post 10 times and lose 1-0. You know that. So negative comments from the coach or from the players are verboten. You should not do that. You're piling on negatively. By moving on to the next player, concentrating and trying to move to the next thing, you have a better chance to be your best at any moment. Now I'm going to show another video here, and it's before you play it, Nate, let me just set it up. It's an NCAA semifinal between Kentucky and Duke, and Duke led the entire game until Kentucky hit a three with, I believe, 1.7 seconds left. Let's have a look at it. Nate?
2.1 seconds left. No team has repeated as NCAA champions since UCLA did it in 1973.
A quick timeout so they can get in better shooting range.
There's the pass to Leitner. Puts it up. Yes!
Okay, guys. I've had the opportunity to talk to Mike Krzyzewski about that situation. And here's what he told his coaches with 2.1 seconds left. He said, we have to reframe this and we have to sell to these guys that this is an opportunity to do something that's never been done before. And so he jumped off his chair, he smiled, he clapped everybody on the back, he sat down and he told these guys, we're going to win the game. The next play, he wanted them to forget the three that just happened, forget the other 40 minutes or so of basketball, and focus on the next play. By the time that team went out on the field, on the floor, they thought that they were going to win the game. In fact, they knew they would win the game, and they went on to win a second national championship. Commitment. Commitment is very simply doing what it takes to do. You're committed to yourself as a coach, to your players, to the program. For the players, go to every class, sit up front, and meet with the professors. We're adamant about that. If a young man on our team skips a class, they don't train today. If they don't train today, they don't play in the next game. It happens once, maybe twice a year. But once we have to do it, and people, the guys on the team get the message. The team always you know this, the team always has to come before the individual player or before the coach. The team is number one. You know, I always ask my team every year when we're going through this, the storming phase of moving a group to a team. I always ask them who won the scoring championship last year in NCAA Division III soccer. Of course, nobody knows. But when I ask them who won the national championship, they all know. So what I'm trying to tell them is the emphasis is not on that individual high scorer. The emphasis is on team results. Taking care of the little things, as I mentioned before, on and off the field. And we're talking about improving your daily habits. Commitment. Nate, next, please. Acceptance. I'm talking to my team here. To accept, to share, uphold, and pass along the tradition of the Ohio Wesleyan program, in my case. We have a catchphrase, I guess nowadays it's called a hashtag, I guess, which I really didn't know what that was until recently. And our hashtag is pride and tradition. I want our guys to be proud of the tradition of the program, with the understanding that they none of them are responsible for the last 46 years of success in the program, but they're adding to that success. And they should be proud of what's happened in the past and proud of what they're going to do to continue the legacy of this program. We emphasize no matter what your role is, you're important. And you know that. For example, let me talk about Krzyzewski again. Many of you probably know this. For the first 25 minutes in every practice at Duke basketball, Mike Krzyzewski coaches the second team and lets his assistants coach the first team. It's clear what he's trying to do. He's telling the second team is you are important. Instead of just the assistants coaching them, it's him, the big man. You are important to this program. We cannot do what we want to do without you. A tough player must determine what he or she should sacrifice to be a part of a special team. What task is too small? What role is beneath him? Is there anything I'm not willing to do for this team to succeed or for the team to operate at its highest level? We talk about our guys every single day. Do something to help the team. So if you're injured and recovering, then help us with the water bottles. Help us with the equipment. Do something every day to help this team get better. We are a we-driven team and not a me-driven team. Now, I don't want to go too long, but one of the big problems we all have as college coaches, and I can see this list over here, some of you are college coaches, is your players come to you after being totally dependent on their parents in high school. Now they want to be independent. What they don't know, and all of you do know, is you're never going to be independent, but let them think they are. And so now here's a coach, you telling these players that you want them to sacrifice something for the team. In their mind, they think they're giving up their independence. What they don't know is that you will be better off with interdependence. You all know that. That is doing something that you can't do alone. Winning a national championship, winning a conference championship. But to be interdependent, you have to give up a little bit of your independence. I mean, you all know that, but that's a real struggle because a lot of our guys, especially men, not so much women, That's a big struggle. A lot of our guys don't want to give up their independence. Next, please, Nate. Resilience. Resilience is similar to persistence, but it's more about coming back. It's more about bouncing back. The ability to come back to fight adversity or difficulties is a measure of true toughness. There's another good book I recommend. It's called Bounce, B-O-U-N-C-E, by Keith McFarland. It's a book about resilience and bouncing back and how to deal with adversity. One of the things that happens in my mind in coaching is we all talk about adversity and but coaches very seldom tell their players how to deal with adversity. They say, okay, by doing this goal line stand, you're going to learn about adversity. Well, you don't. That isn't how it works, you know? So you as a coach, in my opinion, have a responsibility to help your players understand adversity and, more importantly, how they can bounce back from adversity. For example, my beep test score was average. Will I work hard enough to improve it by 2 levels? So I didn't do what I wanted to do. Can I improve? Going to class every day, even when feeling sick or tired. Starting with that review sheet for an examination 2 or 3 days before the examination and not the night of the examination. Players, will you take initiative during my summer internship? Resilience. This takes a while. All of these things take a while. You know, your freshmen, my freshmen are totally clueless, you know, but they start getting it around the sophomore year. Some takes a little bit longer, but you know, that's part of what we have to do. Next, please. Okay, this is really important to me. It's hard for all of us to honestly evaluate ourselves, to look in the mirror and say, okay, Jay, here's what you do well, and here's where you need work. Now, but in order for you to improve, and in order for your players to improve, they have to learn how to do this really, really hard. When we do our goal setting, the first thing that the players do is we have an evaluation instrument for every position on the team, and they evaluate themselves. And then they sit down with me and we go over the evaluation. And until they can be honest with themselves, they're just not going to get any better. Earl Weaver, longtime manager of the Baltimore Orioles. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Another good book. And that's what this is about. It's about how you evaluate where you are. For example, I'm a Boston Celtics fan. Maybe you heard a little Boston in my accent. Who knows? I don't think I have it anymore, but my sisters do. Let's take Larry Bird. Very, very good basketball player. Let's take Michael Jordan, a very, very good basketball player. Michael Jordan's skill set was so much better than Larry Bird's, it's ridiculous. But still, Larry Bird is considered one of the best players ever. Why? Because he didn't want to be like Mike. He knew that he couldn't do most of the things that Michael Jordan could do, so he didn't even try. And that's one of the things that you have to work with your athletes. I mentioned this briefly earlier, and that is your athletes have to know what they can do well and what they don't do very well. And in games, they only do what they can do well. They don't try their first bicycle kick ever in the state championship game or the conference championship game, because it's not going to happen. They're going to make a mistake. And most of our athletes and you as coaches, when mistakes happen, some of us go down the spiral, go down the drain, and it's all over. Athletes and coaches, we hold ourselves to higher standards. So when we make a mistake, we're very critical of ourselves. You are as a coach, you were as an athlete, and you tend to beat yourself up. Well, you can't do that. And you've got to teach your athletes not to do that. Now, positive self-talk is one way that you can teach your athletes to get rid of, or at least negate, the critic in their ear. So accept the challenge of looking in the mirror, and with a clear head and eyes, evaluate the most important person in your life, who is yourself. This is the only way you get better. None of you, I'm talking to my team, have a ceiling. You have another level, another step to take, another level to reach, another gear to get into. So I can't explain to you how important I think self-evaluation is. Very quickly, 2011, we won the national championship. We had 8 sophomores who got game time during that game. Conventional wisdom says we're going to be really good the next two years, because these sophomores now have experience in a national championship game, winning a national championship game. Well, the next 2 years, we won the conference, got into the NCAA tournament, and we were eliminated by 2 teams that were not very good. And I couldn't figure out what the problem was. And the problem was, and it's the same with your players, the problem was these players did not have experience, because most of our players, when a game is over, it's over. They didn't take the time to think about what they did to help the team be successful in that national championship game. It was over. Go on. Where's the next game? So now, at the end of each game, before noon of the next following day, every player on the team has to send me an email and answer these questions. What went right? What went wrong? How can we be better in the next game? They have to answer those questions for themselves as a player and for the team. You'll be surprised how these guys, how the people on your team, men and women, really know what went right, what went wrong. They just don't think about it. So I'm forcing them to think, to try to gain experience. I'm forcing them to do that. Now, look, do all the players take it seriously? No, they don't. But as they go through their career here, they take it seriously. And if they don't get it in by noon, they don't train that day. And if they don't train that day, they don't play in the next game. And again, that happens once. Nate, next, please. And finally, Jay Billis. I know that I'm capable of true toughness. I believe we are all capable of exhibiting toughness. I also accept that I am not as tough as I want to be, and that I have to continue to strive every day to be tougher for myself, for my team, for my family. Toughness isn't about bravado. It's about meeting challenges head on and not shrinking from them. When I get knocked down, I strive to be tough enough to get up and keep fighting. Based upon these 10 principles, I know that I'm tougher than I used to be, and I can and will be tougher tomorrow than I am today. And so just a couple of comments. I saw somebody here about, yes, we can send you, I don't know if Nate will send you the PowerPoint or I'll send it to you, but you are more than welcome to have this PowerPoint. And I also, somebody just asked about a list of books. I have a list of books that I can also send you, that I've read over the years, and I get asked about these books all the time. So I will be happy to send you that list if you send me an email at jamartin, MARTIN, at owu.edu, and I will send you that list of books. Also, any of the things I've mentioned, the self-evaluation form, our goal-setting form, I will be happy to share that with any of you in this group. Again, if you reach out to me and just ask, what you have. Now, Nate, you said something about questions, where I see some pop up, but I'm sure I haven't.
Yep, well, we're going to open it up to questions. So anyone in the chat, if you have any questions for Coach, please feel free to ask now. We did have one question where Coach asked, how do you get the class attendance reported daily?
We send a we have our players take a form that we have that I'll be happy to send you to their first class. The form has to be signed by the professor. And what we ask the professors to do is, and not all the professors do this because some of them they just don't. But what we ask the professor to do is alert us immediately if if this young man holding that form doesn't show up at class. I would say that the majority of professors at Ohio Wesleyan will do that and help us out. But you know, I don't know where you all work, to be honest. But those of you who work in college know that there's a group of professors who are very resistant to doing things like this. So we've got to live with that. But most of the professors will alert us immediately when there's a missed class.
Awesome. Then we just had a question from Coach Eddie. How do you feel about the concept of praising in public and disciplining in private?
I guess, I don't think about that very much. But what I will tell you is that discipline for us as college coaches is one of the biggest problems we have. Inevitably, your top scorer will do something stupid during the week before the big game. That's how it is. So what do? Do you sit the big guy down or the big woman down and say, you're not playing in this big next game? Well, when you do that, you're hurting the team without any question. So what we've come up with, and our leadership council came up with this, I wish I could take credit for it. What we came up with is what we call community service hours. So we discipline with community service hours. So we have a list, and the list will say what the infraction is and what the consequences are. For example, maybe one of our players got caught on campus with an open container. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but that player will have to the consequence will be 6, 8, or 10 community service hours, which means the player has to clean the locker room, do the laundry until the community service hours are completed. And one of the members of the leadership council will oversee this to make sure that happens. I have all kinds of questions about how good this is. And every time I talk to coaches group, some coaches are thinking, and some coaches will put their hand up and say, but Jay, that's the lesson. The lesson to learn is that when you do things, you impact the group. Well, look, I'm a product of the 60s. I'm probably more liberal than most of you on this Zoom. I don't think so. I don't think somebody doing something stupid should impact everybody on the team. I just don't think that's right. So as I said, we have community service hours. I don't know if that answers your questions or not. I don't criticize in the newspaper. I do praise, but I haven't thought about. I've heard that phrase before, but I haven't thought about it very much.
Awesome. We got another question here. Do you use any type of player journal to self-evaluate other than the email that you mentioned?
I don't understand player journal. What are you talking about?
I think they're just referring to do the players have any type of self-evaluation form for themselves?
Yes, here's what we do. Every player gets a 3-ring binder in preseason that they keep in their locker. And every one of these evaluations and goal setting sheets, and we also have a game goal sheet, which is given to the players the day before the game. And we ask them what their goals are for the game. What are the potential obstacles? As a result of that, what's their plan to be successful? And that's what we want them thinking about. All of these go into their journal that stays in their locker. And it's not unusual for me, and I'll make sure everybody has this experience. I will call, hey, Nate, get your journal, come into my office. Let's go over a few things. So maybe Nate and I talk about his self-evaluation, and maybe it's mid-season. And so maybe maybe he's improved, hopefully he's improved now. And so maybe there are other areas needed for improvement. So we talk about it, we try to set new goals, and we move on. Goal setting is all about recalibration. reach a goal, recalibrate, move forward. Next play, move forward. I hope that answers the question.
Awesome. Last question here before we close up. Actually, we got one more coming in, but I'm a high school coach. We have 4 different club teams that make up the high school team. We're also limited on time to build our team before games start. Any suggestions on how to build a team in a short amount of time?
Oh, it's difficult for all of us in a short amount of time. Our preseasons, by high school and college, our preseasons are ridiculously small. So you have to create a culture, and this is going to take some time. If you don't have a culture on the team already, it's going to take some time. You have to create a culture through the players, not me. The first day of preseason, next Wednesday or whenever it is, our players will lead the team in a discussion, and they will set our team values and they will set our team goals. I won't even be in the room. So the seniors and the captains and the leaders are in charge of this meeting. And then we put all these on a big pyramid, you know, and we list all these, we laminate it. Every guy in the team has to sign it, and we hang it up in the locker room. And then next year, the juniors and the seniors run this. Team values and team goals. And, you know, the team goals are on the field goals and off the field goals. And the values, and we, you know, we try to tap it off at 7, 8, or 9 values. That's enough. And we keep referring to those values as we go through the season. It takes time. But, you know, I think that's, and again, let me think for a minute here. If you are interested in our process or procedure for that value / team goals session, just shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send you what we do and how we do it. I have more damn files than anybody will know.
All right, last question here. I'm taking over a high school state championship winning team from last fall with a lot of returning players. How does one continue to motivate them in order to accomplish the ultimate goal once again?
It's going to be tough, but it's going back to the goal setting for them. And I don't know off the top of my head, maybe you can do some research and see how many championship teams repeated in your state, and how you would like to now sell to your team, for example, hey, we can be one of 4 teams who have repeated as state champs. We have this opportunity to do this, so on and so forth. So what you're doing is you're kind of putting last year's championship on the back burner, and you're making this year's championship a bigger challenge, a greater challenge, because it's going to be, you know that, everybody's going to be loaded for you and so on and so forth. But make the challenge a step higher and try to get the pride and now the tradition of a state championship instilled into your program and your players.
Awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time today. We really appreciate it. And I'll make sure that we get the PowerPoint sent over to all who attended today.
Okay.
If I get any more questions via email, I'll make sure I forward them over to you. But again, thank you so much for your time and to all that joined today.
Thank you very much for listening. I don't know how many people were here, but thank you very much. I hope you got something out of it. And if I can help you in any way going forward, except you, Brian Jaworski, I'm not going to help you. But if I can help anybody else, just let me know.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate it. And everyone have a great day.